Hey everyone, so I want to talk to you guys today about a topic that I've been wanting to bring up for a very long time, but I felt like I needed to learn a lot more about it before I could talk to you guys and teach you a bit. But I'm getting to the point where I realize that when you wait for perfection or when you wait for the perfect moment, that moment usually never comes. And so I'm going to be honest and tell you that I'm not presenting myself as some kind of a professional. I'm not a psychologist. Obviously, there are tons of things I still need to learn, but I think that I've learned enough about this particular topic that I can speak to that and tell you how it has played out and worked in my life personally. And if you guys want to take that and apply that to your life, then by all means, I mean, that's a wonderful thing, but I thought that I would just spew some of the things that I've learned to you guys and hope that you take the time to listen. So a topic that I want to bring up today is self-actualization. I had a really hard time pronouncing that a couple times. Actualization. A little bit of a history lesson here. The man that actually coined the term self-actualization was named Abraham Maslow. He was born in the USA in Brooklyn, New York, but his parents were actually immigrants from Russia. So basically what Maslow designed was this idea of the hierarchy of needs. And essentially it's this triangle that has different levels. So it has a base level, next level, next one, next one, next one, and then the peak is obviously up here. So that goes from the lower human needs or the more basic human needs to the most quintessential and necessary for human fulfillment. So the very basic human needs, the ones on the bottom of the triangle, are physiological. So things that have to do, obviously, with the physique, that are physical. So those are things like food, also water. Without water, you die. Oxygen. If you can't breathe, then you also die. So those are very, very basic human, animal, in general needs that all of us need to survive. The next level above the basic need is safety needs. So things such as shelter, heat when it's cold outside or cooling when it's really hot outside, and protection from dangerous situations and injuries. The next level above that is sense of community. So for many of us, this is very important for maybe not every animal, but a majority of animals. Most of us, we need to be surrounded by other people of our own kind. A level above a sense of community is self-esteem. And essentially what this is how you find your worth, how you value yourself, how significant do you think you are and the role you play is. And the last level, which is actually the top level, so the most important, is self-actualization. And what that means is your personal growth. It's your personal full potential to do everything to the best of your ability and to the best of your capabilities. Now, you're probably sitting there like, what the heck is she talking about? This is getting pretty abstract. What really is self-esteem? How do you measure self-esteem? How do you measure self-significance? How do you measure self-worth and self-actualization? That's a good question. And that's what I'm going to tell you. This part was extremely simplistic because that's how usually people leave it. They leave it being very dreamlike. It's something, yeah, we can talk about it and we can preach about it, but we don't actually do it. And that's a problem. Arguably, self-actualization is the most significant and the one that we least understand and know how to achieve. And what Dr. Maslow actually suggested was that when we don't realize that potential, that actually leads to mental decay, dysfunction, and neurosis. So to put that into perspective, for example, physically, if you are lacking in nutrition or vitamins from your food and from your diet, you will start to become malnutritioned. You will start to see physical ailments because you are not giving your body the correct amount of nutrition for it to run sufficiently. The same thing he's saying happens to your brain and to your mind. When you are not realizing your full potential and you are not living up to that potential, you start to essentially mentally decay. and go a little bit wacky. When your mind is not being stimulated, when you are not achieving that highest potential that you have, and you're not growing on a consistent basis, you feel unmotivated. Now, I'm no scientist, I'm no psychologist, but I know a lot of people who are unmotivated. And I think we can all agree that in our society today, and I know people could argue, well, people have always felt this way. Not necessarily, and yeah, I'm gonna base it off of today because this is when I'm alive, and this is basing it off of my own personal experience and what I see and connect to. So yes, I'm gonna talk about today. Today, I think many people are unfulfilled and very unmotivated. The amount is actually mind-boggling, especially when they live in a place with such opportunity and such privilege, and instead of focusing on all of the things they can achieve, they focus on the ones that they can't. And arguably those aren't even things they can achieve, they're just things they aren't putting in the effort to achieve, which is a whole other thing. Nonetheless, the amount of suicides, the amount of depression and mental illness, and again, not saying I'm a scientist, not saying that everyone's cause of mental depression or clinical depression is something that is self-induced, but I do think that humans have an ability to overcome those mental illnesses to a much larger degree than we give ourselves credit for. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that it's reasonable for the amount of privilege and opportunity and, dare I say, advancement that just humanity in general, there are still major issues in the world. I know that. And even here. But when you look as a point of comparison, we are not fighting the Black Plague, people. We're not. We're not dying over cholera here. We have come a long way. Human innovation has moved us greatly forward. So with that said, how can we be more depressed and anxious than ever? That just doesn't make sense. Back to what Dr. Maslow talks about how do you even become a self-actualized person? And he does give quite a monster of a list, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but I do want to touch on the ones that I think are most helpful to me so that I can catch myself and snap myself out of my wallowing and self-pity and self-defeatedness. Very interesting one. They have an increased sense of individuality. And I know that that one can be kind of controversial because a lot of people think, well, wouldn't that make you be more selfish if you're just thinking about the self and the individual? But it's actually the opposite. It actually makes you into a person that is more responsible for your own actions because you don't look at life as something that is happening to you from the outside. You look at life as something that is happening as a result of your actions, which makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Myself included at one point. This is something that I'm still learning, but it takes practice. It takes a lot of work to look at the things that are happening in your life as results of your own actions, meaning that everything around you, accent or not to some extent, is your problem. That it's a result of actions and decisions that you've made. And there are obviously exceptions. I mean, there are obviously things that you cannot control, but you still can control how you behave in that situation. You can control how you respond emotionally. You can choose to respond in an angry way. You can respond in a more positive way. Those are all choices. And we often look at emotions like things, again, that are just happening to us. You made me sad. You made me angry. No. That was a situation. You interpret it that way, but you can also then change it. And that is possible. It's hard, but it's possible. Such a big one. Freshness of gratefulness. They are grateful. You can focus all day on the things you don't have and the things you haven't done. But really, living in a place like Canada, I mean, think about this. The fact that I'm born and living in Canada, how blessed am I? In a population of 7.5 billion people, I'm living in the top 2% of privilege and quality of life in the entire world. I mean, that's huge, especially coming from background of immigrant parents, My mom was born here, but my grandma, my great-grandmother, was from Ukraine, from the Soviet Union. And we all know what happened if I had to stay there during those years, if I was born during that time. And then my father is from Chile, from Santiago, and he lived during the coup d'etat, where they overthrew the president of Salvador Allende, and then Pinochet, who was a very cruel, controversial dictator. My dad didn't have to come here, and he ended up here. And then I was born here. I mean, if I am not blessed to have parents from differing sides like that, and then having met in a country like Canada and have the opportunities that I have here, I don't know what being blessed is, if that's not. And if we woke up every day with that kind of mentality, reminding ourselves of all of the opportunities and the positive things we have in our life, there's no way, I truly cannot believe that anyone would live in a place like Canada or the US or the Western world in general, where you have all these opportunities and blessings, that you don't feel grateful, that you wake up feeling depressed and unhappy and like you're being gypped out of life, like people need to owe you something more. We don't freaking live in Saudi Arabia, people. You don't live through real injustice. You really don't live through real prejudice, real social boundaries. We don't. We just don't. If anyone out there living in the US and Canada can actually tell me one human right that you do not have, that someone else in your country has, I will bow down to you. But I think you'll have a really hard time finding one, because it doesn't exist. So we've chatted a whole lot about what a self-actualized person looks like. Now, how do you actually get some crap done? So a quote that I actually saw in the video that really hit home for me, at least personally, was, "If you don't have discipline, you don't deserve to dream." Essentially, what that is saying is, you need to dream. Of course, most of us don't have a problem with dreaming. Most of us actually use a heck of a lot of our time talking about the things that we want to do and that we're gonna do, but you can't build a career off of what you're going to do. And quite frankly, no one cares about what you're going to do and what you want to do. People care about results. And most of us, our talk is really cheap. Most of our mouths are way ahead of our actions, meaning talk about all these amazing things you're gonna do, and zero action, or very low action. You need to tell yourself, if you're not generating the results that you want, then obviously you need to deconstruct and backtrack and go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, if I want this result and these actions aren't getting me that result, or this lack thereof is not getting me those results, then what actions are going to get me those results? And there really is no other way. It's not rocket science. I know that it may sound more complex, but it's really not. If something isn't working, then you need to change what you're doing. Just like Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It's not going to happen. When you're put in situations where you feel urgency and you feel like you have to act now because that goal is so important that you want to get to it, you will take action. The problem with most of us, therefore, is that we lack a sense of urgency. We think that we have a lot more time than we do. What am I waiting for? Why don't I have a sense of urgency? If I really want that life, then my actions better match my mouth, or else it's never going to happen. So these are all choices. These are all choices about how are you going to get results, the results that you want. The more I learn about the power that we truly hold with our brain, and I don't mean this in like a new age, hippie, spiritual crystal kind of way. I mean this in a scientific, factual, realistic way, that our brain is such an amazing tool, and most of us never unlock its true potential. Not even close. We usually let our brain control things that we do. So if we're used to reacting in a certain way, or we're used to thinking in a certain way, that's the automatic way that our brain is going to react. Again, these are habits that we built. And our brain goes to great lengths to protect us. So that helps us make excuses. So when we don't achieve something, or something doesn't go our way, or we fail, our brain's natural reaction is to protect us from getting hurt and from feeling uncomfortable. And the moment I started realizing that simple fact, that my brain, although the intentions are good, it's protecting me but it's also shielding me from growing, from becoming a better person, from changing my views, from becoming more knowledgeable, from shaping the life that I want to have, from achieving the things I want to achieve, because of the simple fact it wants to be comfortable. If you are going to prioritize being comfortable over your personal growth, your personal potential, your capabilities, your knowledge, then you are going to have a very unhappy life. And I know that seems harsh, but it's absolutely true. The overall truth that I'm trying to get to you guys is that you really do have far more agency in your life than you think you do. And this is something I'm still realizing and still learning, but I encourage you to take the initiative to learn yourself, because if you're waiting for people to bring you this knowledge, or if you're waiting for someone to hand you this free ticket to the life you always want or the career you always want, it's just not going to happen. If you really look at the spectrum of you and all the other human beings on the planet, all 7.5 billion of us, you have it pretty good if you are watching this, okay? So recognize the blessings that you have and truly use them, because just like you hear from your teachers and your parents, there are so many people around the world who would die to be in your shoes, quite literally. So really look at the blessings, count your blessings every day, and look at challenges in a new way, not as things getting in your way, but as a chance to grow. And again, not in a cliche, very abstract way, but literally shift your thinking. When something challenging comes up, remember, you have the ability to react to this in various ways. It doesn't have to be, woe is me, poor me, I'm never gonna get over this. No, you can literally change that and say, okay, this is an obstacle. I don't know how to solve this problem. Where can I find those answers? So it's about taking personal responsibility for the life you want. First, think of what life do you want, and then what are the actions you have to take to get those results? Because results are all we're looking for, right? It's all in the results. So thank you guys for watching this. If you like videos like this where I kind of rant about things that I'm learning, and if you found it interesting, please let me know, and I'd be happy to make a ton more, because I find it really interesting and I feel like I'm growing because of it. And I love that. It's something that I'm now craving, to become more eligible and just a better person all around any way I can. So let me know your thoughts, and hope you guys have a nice day.